First Contact. The holographic displays aboard the Galactic research vessel, Profound Discovery, cast an ethereal blue glow across the bridge, their light dancing off Captain Zach Thion's crystalline skin. The captain's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession as he processed the information before him, his crystalline structure clouding slightly with disbelief. It was the equivalent of a human furrowing their brow, though the humans themselves didn't know this yet. "Run the analysis again, Science Officer Lyra," he commanded, his voice resonating with the particular harmonic frequency that indicated both fascination and skepticism in his species. Lyra's quasar antennae twitched as she complied, her silver scales rippling under the ambient lighting. "Captain, I've run the analysis 17 times now. The results remain consistent." Her clawed fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up multiple data streams that floated in the air like luminescent ribbons. Earth's inhabitants continue to survive using technology that should have become obsolete millennia ago. The bridge crew had abandoned any pretense of maintaining their regular duties, gathering around Lyra's station with undisguised curiosity. Even the ship's AI, usually maintaining its professional demeanor, had directed additional processing power to analyze the peculiar findings. "Show me their emergency preparation protocols again," Captain Thion requested, his crystalline structure now completely clear, a sign of intense focus among his people. The holographic display expanded, showing images that seemed almost comically primitive to the advanced alien crew, flashlights powered by chemical batteries, preserved food in metallic containers, cloth bandages, and manual tools that required physical exertion to operate. "Fascinating," muttered Dr. Kvan, the ship's xenoanthropologist, his tentacles curling in contemplation. "They haven't even developed basic molecular restructuring for their medical emergencies. They literally wait for their bodies to heal themselves." Lyra nodded, her antennae bobbing with excitement. "And yet, their survival rate during disasters is remarkably high. Look at these statistics." She pulled up another data stream, showing graphs and charts that seemed to defy logical explanation. "They've survived everything from massive geological events to extreme weather phenomena, and they do it all with these basic tools." Captain Thion's crystalline form refracted rainbow patterns across the bridge as he processed this information. In his centuries of exploration, he'd never encountered anything quite like this. Most civilizations either advanced beyond such primitive technology or destroyed themselves trying. Yet here was Earth, stubbornly surviving against all odds. "What about their global communication systems?" he inquired, trying to find some explanation for their improbable resilience. Lyra's antenna drooped slightly, the equivalent of a grimace. "That's another puzzling aspect, Captain. They still rely on physical infrastructure for most of their communications. When disasters strike, these systems often fail completely. And yet they survive," Captain Thion mused, his voice carrying that harmonic undertone of fascination again. "Not only survive," Lyra corrected, "but they often emerge stronger. Look at this pattern." She highlighted a particular data stream showing recovery rates after various disasters. Their communities actually seem to become more resilient after experiencing hardship. It's as if difficulty strengthens them instead of breaking them apart. Dr. Kvan's tentacles waved excitedly. "Captain, this could be the discovery of the century. A species that thrives on adversity instead of technological advancement. It goes against everything we know about civilizational development." The captain remained silent for a moment, his crystalline structure shifting through various colors as he contemplated the implications. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying the formal harmonic that indicated a significant decision had been made. "Science Officer Lyra, prepare a full research proposal. I want to understand exactly how these humans manage to survive with such primitive means. Dr. Kvan, you'll assist her. We need to approach this from both a technological and anthropological perspective." Lyra's antennae perked up immediately. "Actually, Captain, I've already prepared a preliminary proposal." She swiped across her holographic interface, bringing up a detailed research plan. "I suggest we conduct a practical experiment. We should observe their response to various emergency scenarios, comparing their survival capabilities against our own using equivalent resources. The captain's structure momentarily flickered with surprise. Are you suggesting we deliberately create emergency situations? No, Lyra quickly clarified, her scales rippling with mild alarm. We merely need to observe their natural responses to existing emergencies. Earth experiences numerous natural disasters regularly. We can study their reactions in real time. Dr. Kvan's tentacles curled thoughtfully. We could also analyze their historical records. Their primitive data storage systems are easily accessible, and they document everything extensively. Captain Thion's structure cleared completely as he made his decision. Very well. Establish a research base in orbit around Earth. We'll maintain our quantum camouflage to avoid detection. They're not ready for first contact yet. I want regular reports on your findings. As the crew dispersed to begin their new assignment, none of them could have predicted how this simple research project would change not only their understanding of human resilience but their entire perspective on what truly constituted advanced civilization. The experiment begins. 3 Earth months into their observation mission, the crew of the Profound Discovery found themselves more puzzled than ever. Their research base, hidden in synchronous orbit above Earth's northern hemisphere, had gathered enough data to fill several quantum databases, yet each new discovery seemed to raise more questions than answers. Lyra stood before the ship's senior staff in the main conference chamber, her antennae twitching with barely contained excitement as she presented their latest findings. The holographic display behind her showed various scenes from Earth, communities rebuilding after hurricanes, emergency workers responding to earthquakes, and ordinary citizens helping each other through countless smaller crises. What you're seeing defies our traditional models of civilizational development, she explained, her scales shimming with academic fervor. These humans don't just survive despite their primitive technology, they often thrive because of it. Dr. Kvan's tentacles writhed in agreement. Their social bonds actually strengthen under pressure. When their technology fails, they don't collapse into chaos as our models predicted. Instead, they adapt and overcome through cooperation. Captain Thion's crystalline structure shifted to the deep blue of contemplation. Show them the comparison analysis, he instructed. Lyra nodded, pulling up a new set of holographic data. We ran simulations using our own emergency protocols, but with their level of technology. The results were humbling. She highlighted several data points that glowed red in the holographic display. In 73% of scenarios, our own people would have suffered catastrophic failure without our advanced technology. The humans, however, consistently find ways to survive and recover. The conference chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Assistant Medical Officer Clara, a being of pure energy contained within a specialized field generator, pulsed with skepticism. Surely there must be some hidden factor we're missing. Perhaps they have latent psychic abilities or unknown genetic advantages. We considered those possibilities, Dr. Kvan replied, his tentacles gesturing at another data set. But no, they're completely ordinary biological entities. Their only notable characteristic is their remarkable adaptability and social cohesion under stress. What about their emotional responses? Asked Security Chief Vorn, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lighting. Surely such primitive beings must experience extreme fear and panic during crises. Lyra's antennae drooped slightly as she prepared to challenge another assumption. That's another fascinating aspect. They do experience fear, quite intensely, in fact. But rather than paralyzing them, it often seems to sharpen their focus and drive them to action. The holographic display shifted to show scenes from various emergency situations, humans rushing into burning buildings to save strangers, forming human chains to rescue people from floods, sharing their limited resources during power outages. They call it fight or flight, Dr. Kvan explained, but we're discovering it's more complex than that. They have another response they call tend and befriend, forming social bonds and helping others during crisis situations. Captain Thion's crystalline structure rippled with interest. And you believe this social behavior is key to their survival? It appears to be fundamental, Lyra confirmed. Their emergency kits, primitive as they are, aren't just about individual survival. They're designed to help them help each other. She pulled up images of community centers, emergency shelters, and volunteer organizations. They have entire systems built around the concept of mutual aid. The captain was silent for a moment, his structure cycling through various colors as he processed this information. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying the harmonic of revelation. We've been approaching this all wrong. We've been studying their technology when we should have been studying their social structures. Exactly. Lyra's antennae quivered with excitement. And I have a proposal for the next phase of our research. She brought up a new holographic display showing a detailed plan. We've been passive observers until now. I suggest we implement a more interactive approach. The chamber went silent. Even the ship's AI seemed to hold its computational breath. Explain, Captain Thion commanded, his structure showing the clear transparency of intense focus. We've developed quantum simulators that can perfectly replicate Earth's emergency scenarios, Lyra began, her scales rippling with scientific enthusiasm. I propose we create a controlled experiment. We select a small group of our own people, equip them with only Earth-level technology, and have them attempt to survive scenarios that humans routinely face. Dr. Kvan's tentacles curled with interest. A comparative study? That could provide invaluable insights into their survival mechanisms. And potentially highlight our own vulnerabilities, Security Chief Vorn added, his metallic fingers drumming thoughtfully on the conference table. Our reliance on advanced technology might be more of a weakness than we realized. Captain Thion's structure shifted through several colors before settling on the clear crystalline state of decision. Proceed with the experiment, he commanded. But with one addition, I want to participate personally. The chamber erupted in protests, but the captain raised a crystalline hand for silence. This isn't just about gathering data anymore, he explained, his voice carrying the harmonic of absolute conviction. These humans might have something vital to teach us about survival, resilience, and the true nature of civilization. And I intend to learn it firsthand. As the senior staff filed out of the conference chamber, none of them could shake the feeling that they were on the verge of a discovery that would shake the foundations of their supposedly advanced civilization. They had come to study what they thought was a primitive species, only to find themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about progress and survival. And somewhere below them, oblivious to the scrutiny they were under, humanity continued to face its challenges with nothing more than basic tools, determination, and an unwavering tendency to help each other through the darkest of times. The simulation. The quantum simulation chamber aboard the Profound Discovery hummed with energy as final preparations were made for the experiment. Captain Thion stood with 3 other volunteers, their advanced environmental suits and technological aids replaced with crude Earth-equivalent clothing and tools. The chamber itself had been programmed to perfectly recreate Earth conditions, down to the most minute atmospheric variations. Lyra supervised the preparation from her control station, her antennae twitching with a mixture of excitement and concern. Remember, Captain, she cautioned, once the simulation begins, you'll have access to only Earth-level technology. Your crystalline structure will still function, but you won't have any of our advanced capabilities. The captain nodded, his structure showing the clear, determined pattern that had become familiar to his crew over the past months of their Earth observation mission. That's precisely the point, Science Officer. We need to understand how they do it, really understand it. The other volunteers included Dr. Kvan, who had insisted on participating to gather first-hand anthropological data, Security Chief Vorn, who had grudgingly admitted that studying human emergency responses might have tactical value, and Junior Science Officer Mrel, a younger member of the captain's own crystalline species who had shown particular insight into human behavior patterns. The scenario is prepared, announced the ship's AI, its voice resonating through the chamber. We've selected a combination of emergency situations commonly faced by humans, a severe weather event followed by infrastructure failure and limited resources. Parameters set to match average human physiological and technological capabilities, Lyra confirmed, her scales rippling as she made final adjustments. The simulation will run for the equivalent of 7 Earth days. We'll be monitoring everything, but we won't intervene unless there's a genuine risk to your safety. Dr. Kvan's tentacles curled thoughtfully around the primitive tools they'd been given, flashlights, batteries, a basic first aid kit, and some preserved food. It's still difficult to believe they manage with so little, he mused. That's what we're here to find out, Captain Thyan replied, his structure showing the subtle patterns of anticipation. Begin the simulation, Science Officer Lyra. The quantum fields activated, and the sterile chamber transformed into a perfect recreation of an Earth suburban environment. The volunteers found themselves standing in what appeared to be a community center, surrounded by the unfamiliar architecture and technology of human civilization. The simulation wasted no time in presenting its challenge. Within minutes, warning sirens began to wail, and the artificially generated sky darkened ominously. The ship's AI, now speaking through primitive speakers that mimicked Earth's emergency broadcast system, announced the approach of a severe hurricane. First test, Security Chief Vorn announced, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming dully in the dimming light. How do we secure this structure with such primitive tools? Captain Thyan's structure shifted to the pattern indicating deep focus. We observed humans doing this numerous times. They use these sheets of processed wood product to cover transparent barriers. He gestured to the plywood stacked nearby, deliberately placed as part of the simulation. The next few hours were a humbling experience for the advanced aliens. Tasks that would have taken moments with their regular technology became lengthy, physical ordeals. Even the simple act of hammering nails into the plywood proved challenging for beings used to molecular manipulation and quantum engineering. This is preposterous, Morel complained, her crystalline structure showing patterns of frustration after smashing her thumb for the 3rd time. How do humans maintain the precision necessary for such crude tools? Practice, Dr. Kvan replied, his tentacles working surprisingly well at holding multiple nails. Remember, they spend their entire lives working with these limitations. They've adapted to them. As the simulated storm intensified, the volunteers found themselves facing more complex challenges. The power failed, plunging them into darkness broken only by their primitive flashlights. The temperature control systems stopped working, forcing them to rely on simple blankets for warmth. Water pressure dropped, leaving them to manage with stored supplies. Remarkable, Captain Thyan muttered as they huddled in their designated safe room, listening to the howling winds outside. Every solution requires direct physical interaction. There's no automation, no AI assistance, no quantum fields. Just, immediate, tangible responses to immediate, tangible problems. The simulation continued to escalate its challenges. By the 3rd day, they faced flooding, limited food supplies, and the need to assist other simulated civilians. The physical and mental strain began to take its toll, even on their advanced physiologies. But something else was happening too, something none of them had anticipated. The very limitations they faced were forcing them to work together in ways their advanced technology had made unnecessary in their own society. "Pass me that lumber," Vorn called out, his metallic arms straining under the weight of a damaged support beam. Without their usual strength-enhancing fields, even his advanced exoskeleton struggled with the physical burden. Morel quickly complied, her crystalline structure showing patterns of concern. "The water's rising faster on the east side," she reported. "We need to redirect it." "Use the sandbags," Captain Thyan directed, remembering countless observations of humans doing exactly this. "Form a line, we'll pass them hand to hand." The simple act of creating a sandbag chain taught them more about human resilience than months of orbital observation. Each bag had to be physically lifted, passed, and placed, a tedious, exhausting process that required coordination, communication, and trust. Dr. Kvan's tentacles proved surprisingly adept at manipulating multiple sandbags at once. Fascinating, he commented between loads. The physical connection to the work creates a shared experience. It's team building through shared struggle. As the days wore on, they found themselves adapting in unexpected ways. Their usual hierarchical structure began to blur as the immediate needs of survival took precedence over rank and protocol. When Mrel discovered a more efficient way to purify water using their primitive tools, no one waited for the captain's approval to implement her solution. "Look at how we're operating," Captain Thyan observed during a brief rest period. "We're not just surviving the simulation, we're changing how we interact because of it." "The human's primitive technology," Dr. Kvan added, his tentacles gesturing expressively, "it doesn't just solve problems. It shapes their entire social structure. Every challenge requires direct cooperation, immediate trust, and mutual support." The revelation was interrupted by a crash from outside, another challenge from the simulation. But now, instead of the confusion and frustration they'd shown in the beginning, the team moved with coordinated purpose, each member instinctively taking on the role most needed at the moment. As they worked to clear fallen debris and protect their shelter, Captain Thyan's crystalline structure displayed patterns that none of his crew had seen before, a complex blend of humility, understanding, and profound respect. "We came to study their survival techniques," he said quietly, "but we're learning something far more valuable. Their primitive technology isn't a limitation, it's a foundation for something we lost centuries ago." The simulation had 3 more days to run, but already the results were clear. The question was no longer how humans survived with such basic tools, but what their advanced civilization had sacrificed in the name of progress. The discovery. The quantum simulation chamber powered down with a gentle hum, the fabricated reality of Earth's challenges dissolving around the exhausted volunteers. 7 simulated days had passed, leaving them fundamentally changed by the experience. They emerged from the chamber not as superior beings studying a primitive species, but as humbled students of humanity's resilience. Lyra's antennae twitched rapidly as she reviewed the data streams from the simulation. The readings were unprecedented, not just in terms of their survival metrics, but in the fundamental changes they showed in the volunteers' behavior and neural patterns. "Captain," she called out, her scales rippling with excitement, "you need to see these results." Captain Thyan's crystalline structure, still showing the wear of their simulated ordeal, shifted to attention. The other volunteers gathered around Lyra's station, their usual professional distance forgotten after their shared experience. "Your neural patterns," Lyra explained, pulling up complex holographic displays, "they've developed new connections. Patterns I've only seen before in human brain scans during crisis response." Dr. Kvan's tentacles curled with interest as he studied the data. "It's not just neural adaptation," he added. "Look at our hormone analogs. They're showing responses similar to human stress-bonding chemicals, what they call oxytocin and cortisol." "But that's impossible," Mrel protested, her crystalline structure showing patterns of confusion. "Our biochemistry is completely different from humans. We shouldn't be capable of developing analogous responses." Security Chief Vorn's metallic fingers drummed thoughtfully on the console. "Unless it's not about biochemistry at all. What if it's about the fundamental nature of intelligent life under stress?" The captain's structure cleared with sudden understanding. "That's it," he said quietly. "That's what we've been missing all along. Show them the comparison footage, Science Officer Lyra." Lyra nodded, bringing up split-screen holographic images. On one side, recordings of humans responding to various disasters on Earth. On the other, footage of their own team during the simulation. The parallels were striking. "Look at the pattern matching," she pointed out. "When stripped of our advanced technology, we naturally developed the same cooperative behaviors as humans. The same leadership structures emerged. The same trust-building exercises. The same emotional bonds. But we're supposed to be beyond that, Mrel argued, though her structure showed uncertainty. Our civilization evolved past the need for such primitive social bonds millennia ago. Did we evolve past it, Captain Thien asked, or did we lose something fundamental in our rush to technological perfection? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. The ship's AI, which had been quietly processing all the data, spoke up with an observation of its own. I've completed a comprehensive analysis of our civilization's development compared to human history, it announced. There's a statistically significant correlation between our increasing technological advancement and our decreasing ability to form spontaneous cooperative groups under stress. Dr. Kvan's tentacles waved excitedly. Yes, yes. That's what makes humans so resilient. Their primitive technology doesn't just force them to work together, it maintains their capacity for spontaneous cooperation. They haven't lost that fundamental survival trait like we have. And there's more, Lyra added, her scales shimmering as she pulled up new data streams. Look at the long-term effects of crisis response in human communities. Their social bonds don't dissolve once the immediate danger is past. They maintain these connections, building stronger communities over time. Captain Thien's structure displayed the complex patterns of deep revelation. We've been asking the wrong question entirely, he said. We wanted to know how humans survive with primitive technology. But the real question is, how have we survived without these fundamental connections? The implications were staggering. Their entire civilization had been built on the assumption that technological advancement was the measure of progress. But here was evidence that they had sacrificed something crucial in their evolution, the very thing that made humans so remarkably resilient. We need to expand this study, the captain declared, his structure showing the clear patterns of decisive action. Not just of human emergency responses, but of their entire social structure. We need to understand how they've maintained these abilities that we've lost. Sir, Lyra interjected, her antennae twitching with concern, there's something else you should see. She pulled up a new data set, this one showing long-term projections of human technological development. According to our models, she explained, they're on the cusp of major technological breakthroughs. Within a few generations, they'll have capabilities approaching our own. The captain's structure shifted to a deep, contemplative blue. Then we don't have much time, he said. We need to learn everything we can from them before they follow our path. Before they lose what makes them uniquely resilient. The decision. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Federation buzzed with an energy not felt in centuries. Representatives from thousands of advanced civilizations had gathered to hear the findings from the Profound Discoveries Earth observation mission. Captain Thien stood before them, his crystalline structure radiating with the clarity that came from absolute conviction. Distinguished representatives, he began, his voice carrying the harmonic frequencies of formal address, what I am about to present will challenge everything we thought we knew about civilizational advancement. The holographic displays activated, filling the massive chamber with images of Earth, communities rebuilding after disasters, strangers helping strangers, primitive tools being used in ingenious ways to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. We went to study what we believed to be a primitive species, the captain continued. Instead, we found ourselves confronting the cost of our own advancement. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. A representative from the Silicon Consciousness Collective spoke up, their photonic matrix flickering with skepticism. Are you suggesting we should abandon our technological achievements? Return to primitive existence? No, Captain Thien replied, his structure showing the complex patterns of nuanced understanding. I'm suggesting something far more difficult. We must find a way to reclaim what we've lost without sacrificing what we've gained. Lyra stepped forward, her scales shimming with academic precision as she presented their data. Our research shows a direct correlation between technological advancement and the degradation of certain fundamental survival traits. Traits that humans have maintained despite, or perhaps because of, their technological limitations. The chamber erupted in debate. Representatives from various civilizations argued about the implications, their different forms of consciousness creating a cacophony of protest and curiosity. Dr. Kvan raised his tentacles for attention. "Consider this," he called out over the noise. "When was the last time any of our civilizations faced a crisis that couldn't be solved by technology? When was the last time we had to rely on each other, physically and emotionally, for survival?" The silence that followed was profound. "The humans have something we've lost," Captain Thien continued into the quiet. "Something we didn't even realize was missing until we saw it in action. They call it many things: community, solidarity, mutual aid. But at its core, it's the ability to form spontaneous, meaningful connections in times of crisis." The holographic displays showed scenes from their simulation experiment, contrasted with real human responses to similar situations. The parallels were undeniable, as was the evidence of their own civilization's loss of these crucial abilities. "But here's the real challenge," Lyra added, her antennae twitching with urgency. "According to our projections, humanity is approaching a technological threshold. Within a few generations, they'll achieve capabilities similar to our own. And unless we act now, they risk losing these fundamental traits just as we did." The Grand Council chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. It was High Counselor Vrex who finally spoke, their energy form pulsing with thoughtful consideration. "What are you proposing, Captain Thien?" The captain's structure shifted to display the patterns of monumental decision. "I propose we break our most fundamental law. I propose we initiate contact with Earth." The chamber exploded in chaos. The non-interference directive had been a cornerstone of galactic civilization for millennia. Breaking it was unthinkable. "Listen." Captain Thien's voice cut through the uproar, his structure blazing with intensity. "We've always withheld contact from developing civilizations to prevent contaminating their natural development. But what if, in this case, non-interference is the greater harm? What if we have as much to learn from them as they from us?" Dr. Kvan stepped forward, his tentacles moving in the formal patterns of academic presentation. "Our research suggests a narrow window of opportunity. If we wait until they discover us naturally, it will be too late. They'll have already started down the path that led to our own emotional and social atrophy. But if we reach out now," Lyra continued, her scales rippling with excitement, "we could help them preserve what makes them unique while they advance. And in return, they could teach us how to reclaim what we've lost." The debate raged for days, as was typical for a civilization that had the luxury of taking its time with decisions. But in the end, the evidence was too compelling to ignore. The vote, when it came, was unprecedented in galactic history, unanimous. Captain Thien stood once again on the bridge of the profound discovery, looking down at the blue-green planet that had changed everything they thought they knew about advancement and resilience. His structure showed the complex patterns of hope and anticipation. "Send the signal," he commanded. Lyra's fingers danced across her console, initiating the quantum transmission that would be recognizable to Earth's current level of technology. A simple message, broadcast on frequencies they monitored, in all their languages. "People of Earth, you are not alone. And you have something important to teach us." As the signal began its journey toward Earth, Captain Thien's structure displayed a pattern never before seen in his species, one that, had humans been present to observe it, they would have recognized as a smile.